Welcome back. So Easter is approaching, and this year I'm going to be sharing with you something absolutely unique, which is a specialty from central France called the Pâté de Pâques, aka the Easter pâté or the Easter pie. And this is the pride and joy of the region. It is a pie made with puff pastry, forcemeat and hard-boiled eggs. Sounds very odd, but look at this. When it's all cooked and done and you slice it, you get that beautiful effect with the egg, the forcemeat, that beautiful crunchy, warm puff pastry. Put it on a plate, a bit of salad, and you got an Easter starter like never before. And best of all, it is super easy to make. Let's go. And now let's begin by the ingredients. Obviously, you're going to need to have a piece of puff pastry, a roll or a sheet of puff pastry that is already defrosted. It's ready in the fridge. I've got mine in the fridge ready to go. For the rest, the meat. 500 grams of meat. This is pork belly and pork fillet. If you can't eat any of those, you can use veal meat, you can use chicken or eventually beef. It's not a problem. Away from that, a bit of Madeira, some parsley, the eggs, 1 shallot, so very simple. And these are morel. You can use forest mushroom or porchy mushroom. You know that they are dried. You rehydrate them and about 1 or 2 tablespoons. That's all you need. All right, as you can see, it's very simple. Now let me talk about this here. Now let's talk about the meat, because this is the heart and the taste that you're going to get in your pâté here, in your pie. So it is very important, and this is a lesson, a charcuterie 101 lesson. Anytime you make a pâté or anything, you need to season and leave the meat to macerate in the fridge overnight. So these one here, I had the salt and pepper. You'll find the measurement on the recipe, okay? And I've added about 20 ml of Madeira wine. Mix everything together, and I left it in the fridge, and now it is ready. If you don't have time, you can just add the Madeira, the salt and pepper, everything on the moment. But if you want to do the proper way, typically that needs to happen the day before. That's all there is for the meat. We're going to be mincing it. Now the first thing we're going to do here is to mince or grind the meat. So I'm using the KitchenAid kind of meat grinder attachment on here. And I can't show you the whole thing with the camera. So I've put all the meat on here. That's going on the top of my machine. And make sure you wash your hand when you do this, always in charcuterie. And you want a large grid. So you're on the grid with the large kind of size. And all what you do, you take all your pieces of meat, the fatty bits, the lean bits, and you process. And that's it. I'm all done. So this is the first thing. Remember, there's a part of lean meat and a part of fatty meat. This is very important so that your force meat's got a real nice kind of moist bite to it. Otherwise it's going to be dry. If you use something too dry, just lean meat is going to be really bone dry. So you always want to have here, if you use pork, you want the pork belly and then something lean to have a right balance on here. And remember, this is already seasoned with salt and pepper, and there's a bit of Madeira. So all what I'm going to do is put this in the fridge for now as we prepare the rest of the stuff we need. Next step, you take a pan, fill it with water, and we bring it to the boil, and we're going to be boiling the eggs. Once the water is boiling, perfect time to do some chopping. So we're going to be chopping the parsley and the shallot. So this is this cross cut, then sideways. I'm going to first start with this. But the parsley, the same treatment. Always keep just the leaves and make sure you only have the leaves in there when you do your chopping. And you always start with some of these very kind of high chop first. That's what I do if you don't chop very much. All right, and when you get very small, and you can accelerate, you want something really fine in there. So once you've done, you gather the shallot, the parsley, and a tablespoon or 2 of mushrooms, and a little piece of butter, about 20 grams, because we're going to cook this together instead of putting raw into the pâté. It's always better to cook it. But before we do this, remember, we've got the water that is now boiling, so let's put the eggs in. The eggs, very important for that recipe. We're counting 7 minutes on the dot. If you want, you can put a bit of vinegar in the water. And nothing more, nothing less, okay? So you put a timer on, 7 minutes. So now that we have 7 minutes free, what are we going to do? We're going to take a pan. We're going to be melting our butter in here, very quickly. Be careful, I want a bit hard with the heat on here. And I'm going to put my shallots first. Okay, mix that in. Now you don't want a too high heat for this, especially for shallot, otherwise they're going to burn very, very quickly. So first in the butter to release the flavors, then I'm going to add the little bit, I don't have much morels in there. Same thing to release the flavor, and when it's almost cooked, we're going to add the parsley. So this is really just a 1 or 2 minute affair, nothing more. So it's just to par cook the things, have some nice flavor, a bit of buttery aspect, and that's it. Perfect, it's been standing here long enough. I'm adding all your parsley in here. You can even turn the heat off from here. You don't want to overcook your parsley. And same thing, now I'm gonna put this in a little container and set it aside. My eggs are ready. I'm gonna rinse them under cold water and let them sit under cold water so there's a thermal shock so we can then peel them very easily afterwards. Okay, so we've done quite a few things, so let's take a bit of a step back before we move further because we're almost done. So first off, make sure your puff pastry has been totally defrosted, so we're gonna be able to work with it. And what you should have by now is what you have here. So we've got the meat that has been minced, it's already seasoned with everything. We've got the eggs that have been boiled for 7 minutes. We've got an extra egg we're going to be using to make the meat mixture, and it's going to be an egg wash as well for the pastry. We've got our mixture of mushroom, shallots and parsley. I've added here half a teaspoon of sugar we're going to use in the meat on here, and about 20 ml of extra, I'm using Madeira wine, as I said you can use cognac or anything like that, okay? So when you have all of this and your pastry is really defrosted and is ready to go, you can move forward. So now we can keep on going. So for the meat mixture and for the Forcemeat, very important, this is Charcuterie 101 number 2. You don't just add the ingredients, mix it and put this into your pâté. The first thing you need to do is to have a paddle attachment on here, and for a good 30 seconds on low speed you need to work your meat. And so it really gets together into that mixture that is very, very, you'll see what happened. And something happened is like the fat combines with the lean meat, and it just creates a compound that is very unique when you make pâté. Perfect, so after like 20 seconds or something like this, look at that. This is what you get. Everything has kind of mingled, it's become almost like elastic. There's really something that happens, I don't know if it's the collagen or in the meat or something, and then we can keep on going. So I'm gonna add my little bit of sugar on here. I'm gonna add my mixture of shallots and everything. Okay, I'm gonna add also about half of the egg. So I've beaten the egg that I had, and I want to put just about half of it or something like that. Okay, it's been beaten into an omelette, and they're on low speed a good minute. Perfect, so this is our mixture. You can see the fat has totally distributed through the lean meat, so you're not going to have something that is dry. It is nice and elastic, and it's a good distribution of ingredients, and you got some nice little chunks of meat in here, so it's not going to be just like a puree of meat, but something with a bit of a bite. So now we're ready to peel the eggs. Now the eggs, I've shown this a million times. Okay, when you've got them like this, I use running water. You can take a hard surface somewhere on the side, or your sink or your bench or whatever, if you've got a bit of bench on here, and I'm tapping it all along and to make sure all the shells is kind of a little broken. And I typically use my my water here to get that very first, that dent, get that membrane off. And when you get that first membrane, see, then it detaches. It goes like that, so it's a bit too hard. So I like to use the water. You plunge the water if you want, and boom, you're done. So we'll go for all the eggs. So that's it, we've got everything ready. And the last thing here is to assemble and to build the pâté. Very important, your puff pastry, keep it cold first. And you need to have a smaller rectangle and a larger one. Okay, so this is going to be for the base. We're going to build things, but because of the height of the eggs, you need a very large top, because it's going to be towering here and needs to fold down and be able to wrap everything. And now for the assembly. So I've started to put some of my meat on here, my Forcemeat, on the small rectangle. And you note I've got some edges free on the side. And the height here, you don't want to go above about like 5 centimeters. Okay, so it's easier with the hand, you can use a spatula. But you put a bed, basically, of meat like this. But the most important, as I said, you want to keep that edge free on here. And now we're going to put the eggs. So the eggs, you can either put them whole or cut them in half. But what I've done before is that I put them whole. So not like this, but like that. Okay, on the side like this. And you push them a little bit, you make a little dent. And you can use a spoon if you want. Typically, you can use a spoon to make a shape of the egg like that. But I don't bother. Okay, I'm going to put another one, so you leave a little space in between. And then another one in there. Make sure they fit. And then you got your eggs, you see? So it looks like from the side. But we're not finished. From here, then you're going to take, this is where you're going to have to really wash your hand, because we need to then cover all of this very gently with a thin layer of Forcemeat. So you can start by the top of the egg, you go in between, and you don't overdo it. So you're making a mound, okay, like this, and I'm going to go slowly and surely and just cover everything with the meats. Okay, so when you've done, basically, it's almost like a meatloaf. If I look on the side like this, you don't see the egg, it's totally covered, and you want to make sure you tidy everything up to have a nice kind of little pâté, like this, and it's ready to be covered with the other piece of pastry, which is what we're going to do now. Alright, so for the next step, nothing complex, but because we've got the edges and we're going to put some pastry on top, you take the half the egg that we had before. I'm taking a pastry brush on here, and we're going to very gently add a little bit of the egg like this. That's going to act as a glue. We're going to be sealing everything, and it really helps. So we take a bit of that and all around just on the edge to help. I've got now my other piece of pastry that I had, okay, which is now very wide, and you're going to see why it was this big, because now I need to cover the whole thing, you see? So I'm going to join here, make sure I've got plenty of space on here. Okay, I'm going to press things on the side a little bit, like this, and I'm going to really hug that pâté that I've got, and making a nice kind of log. And that's what matters first, okay? And I'm stretching my dough and I'm making sure it's really now pressed. So I'm using the edge of my hands here, I'm pressing here, I'm pressing there to make sure I'm encasing that pâté on here as best as I can to start with. So the most important here, what we're gonna do, you're gonna take a knife and you're gonna cut, not too much, but all the excess of pastry that we've got, okay, all around. Now to finish, once you've trimmed everything, we need to make extra sure everything's going to stay absolutely sealed. So what I'll typically do, I take a fork, okay, and I'm pressing here all the edges down to make sure they're absolutely sealed. And the final trick that I've seen online, some people from the region that were doing, they're actually tucking the edges, so they do these things, but they're kind of rolling the edges under the pâté. So you see, so they're rolling the stuff so that it really goes under there. So they run it up and they kind of make a little round thing. They're tucking it like you're tucking someone into bed. And they're just tucking the whole thing like this inside. And the last step here really consists as taking some egg wash, and we're really going to be generous and really going to brush that whole thing here with egg wash. Now typically it's just egg yolks. Okay, but I've saved an egg, this is half the egg, and that works as well. So I'm going to just brush the whole thing. And then I'm going to leave this to cool in the fridge for at least 15-20 minutes. That's very important. My pâté is out of the fridge, and the final step is the decoration. Okay, so before we do anything, I'm adding another layer, always more egg wash. And then you take a knife or the back of a knife, and you can do whatever shape that you want. So you don't have to go complicated. So typically, I think I will try to know where the eggs are, for instance. I'm going to make these lines on here. Oops, I think I've got one there. You see, you got the gist. Just before we put this into the oven, you make a little hole at the top here using a knife or anything like this for the steam to escape. Okay, that's how it looks like on here, there's a little hole. And when that's done, it's ready to be cooked. So 45 minutes at 190 degrees Celsius, put the equivalent on Fahrenheit, okay, in the oven with the fan force on. Let's go, and then we'll see the result when it's done. Right, so the Pâté de Pâques is out of the oven, and so even though I've done the lines and stuff, I didn't translate it to anything amazing. So it holds its shape in here. That's the principle. It didn't kind of burst open or anything like that. And really what's waiting for us is inside, which is always a bit of a surprise. I think that bump here must be the egg. Right, so I'm not sure, it's always hard to know exactly where the egg is because you want that slice where that really shows the egg. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to first go a little bit in the front to see what we have. Okay. Okay, and that's telling me that we're not even near the egg on here. Okay, so another chance at this. So as you can see, finding the egg is like an Easter egg hunt. So we barely got in here, and I think somewhere here we're gonna have the egg. Yes! Well, we got there in the end, and you see the reason I struggled is because I didn't wait long enough for the resting time. So when you make a pâté, resting time 30-40 minutes like a quiche, it needs to set. Otherwise, if you cut it like me, it's too wet, it can fall apart. Of course, there's plenty of improvisation you can make and change the meat, the herbs, the spices, etc. But I will leave this for you to try, of course, and let me know what you think in the comment section. But that's it for me. I will now leave you, of course, with this beautiful picture here in all its glory of the famous Pâté de Pâques. And I hope you're going to join me again next time for another special video on the French Cooking Academy. Take care all. Bye-bye.
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain.